Now let us talk about exam techniques. Very, very critical topic, exam techniques. Exam techniques is the difference between your pass and your fail. Once we do the mocks, you will realize the importance of exam techniques. So I really want you to focus on the exam techniques right now. Okay, so the first thing is reading and planning time. Okay, so your paper is of 4 hours. Okay, so the first 1 hour we will dedicate to reading and planning, and the remaining 3 hours will be our writing time. That's the big picture. Okay, so So 1 hour for reading and planning and the remaining 3 hours for writing. Okay? So what does this mean? This means that that's our benchmark. This is the amount of time we need to spend on each question. 1.8 minutes per total marks. This is excluding the reading time. So the first hour we will read, okay? Full 60 minutes we will read. Once we start writing, we need to follow this benchmark of 1.8 minutes per total mark. So in all the requirements, there are 2 types of marks. There is a technical mark mentioned and there is a professional marks. For example, it's a 10-mark question. Out of which it will say 8 marks for technical and 2 marks for professional skills. Total 10 marks. So what is the meaning of this word total? By total I mean, the both technical marks plus professional marks. Okay. So for example, the question is of 10 marks. How much time are you expected to spend on it? 18 minutes, period. Okay, as simple as that. The examiner mentions, 2.2 minutes per technical mark. But I respectfully disagree because it's not always possible. It's difficult to calculate 2.2 minutes per technical mark. I just want to keep it simple in the exam conditions. You just follow 1.8 minute per total marks. That's it. Okay, very, very important. Now, the big question is, what happens if your reading speed is slow and you overrun the 60-minute benchmark? Because, many students I have taught, majority of them were slow in reading and planning. And sometimes in case of a lengthy case study, you are not able to finish the entire reading within 60 minutes. So what do we do? Very simple. We stop reading wherever we are. Do not try and complete the reading once you reach 60 minutes. When the 60 minutes are up, you stop reading. Period. What will go wrong? Nothing. You might not be able to read maybe the last exhibit. Okay, we can always read the last exhibit when we start doing that requirement. Okay, because whenever we start a requirement, anyways we have to go back and read that exhibit again, right? So whatever exhibit you are left in the end, don't bother about it, don't worry about it. We can always read when we start that requirement. But make sure that you do not cross or overrun your 60 minutes. Because if you overrun your reading time, already you are in a deficit. Already your writing time is now squeezed. Now you will be under immense pressure and you will not be able to catch up later on. So make sure that you strictly follow the 60-minute reading time. As soon as it is up, you stop reading wherever you are. Just stop reading and start writing your answers. Trust me, believe me, not a problem if you stop reading. After 60 minutes, we can always read the missing exhibit towards the end when we start the later requirements. Right? Do I have your promise that you will time yourself 60 minutes and you will stop reading exactly at 60 minutes, whether completed or not completed? Okay? In a rare circumstance that if you are able to read before 60 minutes, let's say you are able to complete your reading in 45 minutes, I would still say that, spend at least 5-10 minutes extra on your planning your answers rather than diving straight into the drafting bit. It's, SBL is all about planning. Okay, so if you have read in 45 minutes, do not immediately jump into the writing or the drafting portion. Just sit back, take a deep breath, spend a little 5 more minutes on planning and then start writing. But this is a rare situation. Most of the students, they overrun the reading time or they barely complete at 60 minutes. Right? Okay. The second thing is the length of your answer. The length of your answer is very, very crucial because you know what? The time depends on the length of your answer. If you write lengthy answers, if you write much more than what is required by the question, what will happen? You will overrun the time. You see, so the most common reason why students are unable to finish the paper on time is because they do not do length management. Length is the root cause of bad time management. It's not bad time management, it's actually bad length management. Do you agree? Yeah? So what should be the ideal length of your answer? Minimum 2 lines per mark and maximum 3 lines per mark. Okay? And these lines are basically, can I say, written lines. They do not include blank lines or empty lines in between or headings or in fact the formats like report, to, from. Those lines are not excluded. When we say 2 lines per mark, it is actually the written lines or the drafted or the filled lines. Okay. So for a 10 marks question, minimum you need to write 20 lines, which of course includes the blank lines and the formats and the headings. So if you think in totality, it might end up in 30 lines. And maximum you should write 3 lines per mark, and if you include the blank lines and headings on an average, it should reach up to 40 lines. Whatever is easy for you, but for simplicity's sake, 2 lines is minimum, 3 lines maximum written lines. Okay. Now, the other thing which most people ask is the number of points. How many points are we supposed to write? So, you see, some of the time the case provides excessive information, but the marks are low. So it's not practical to write all the information, otherwise we will overrun the length and we will overrun the time. So the normal rule is right. So 1 point carries 2 marks. So in case the question is of 10 marks, how many points you're supposed to write? Maximum 5 points. Okay. So 1 point, 2 marks. Right. So can I say it's a triangle? There are 3 things we need to look at. The triangle is like this. There we need to focus on time, right? And we need to focus on the length of the answer. And simultaneously we need to focus on. So for each requirement, when we plan, we need to look at three things: the time management, the length management, and the number of points. So for example, if the question is of 10 marks, okay, and this is total marks, which is basically 8 marks technical plus 2 marks professional. I'm not interested in the bifurcation because it will make things little bit complicated. Let's focus on total marks. So for a question which carries 10 marks in total, what will be the length? 20 lines minimum and maximum 30 lines. What will be the number of points you need to cover into it? 5 points. And time? 18 minutes of writing time. The goal, this is very, very important, the triangle rule. Okay? The most common feedback I receive from students is that while they are writing the answers, they are not able to keep track of the time. Okay, because they are under so much pressure, they are so engrossed in the writing, their hand is flowing, that they struggle to keep track of the time. So how do we keep track of the time? Okay, I'll give you 2 techniques. Okay, I know, and these 2 techniques have actually been tried and tested in the exam situations, and a few of my top students who scored good marks, they came back and gave me this suggestion for keeping track of time. So how do we keep track of time? The first thing is, when we start our answer, before starting the answer, we calculate the time. Okay, we calculate the time and we write the ending time on our question paper in front of the question. I repeat. So for example, let's say the time is 3 o'clock, okay, and you're about to start this question, which is 10 marks. You're supposed to spend maximum 18 minutes. So when this should end, you add these 18 minutes. So your time should be, you should stop writing maximum. So this time, 3:18, the stop time, you need to write in front of your question paper. So wherever is the requirement, wherever is the question number, just write 3:18 p.m. and put a big circle so that you can see the ending time. You don't need to remember what the ending time was. You don't need to remember when did you start. All you need to do is just mention the ending time right across the question so that you keep an eye on it and the watch is right in front in your exam hall. And this is one technique of making sure that you keep track of your time and don't overrun. The other technique is you decide the maximum number of lines. Okay? Instead of writing the time, forget this technique. You decide the maximum number of lines. For example, if it's a 10 marks question, how much maximum written lines required? 30 lines. Okay? This is 30 written lines. So if I add the blank lines and the headings and the format, let's say it would become 45 lines if I add all the blank lines and the headings and the format. So what you do is, another way of keeping track of your time is that on your answer sheet, okay, count 45 lines and put a mark somewhere on the side around at the 45th line. Okay, so if there are lines on your sheet, count the lines and around 45 lines, put a mark or a dot, something on the side, so that whenever you reach near that mark, that should raise your flag that, listen, I am about to reach my max, we need to stop here. Okay, So these are two techniques which can help you keep track of your time. One, you write the time, the ending time in front of the question, and the other technique is you maybe count the maximum lines required and put a mark on your answer sheet, and you make sure you do not cross that mark. So you try both of these techniques, whichever works well with you, whichever sits well with you, follow it. What I don't want to hear is, sir, we were not able to keep track of our time. Idiots, stupids, never. This is SBL paper. It's all about time management, okay? The last thing about time management is, what if your time is up? When you are writing an answer, let's say you decided that you need to stop at 3:18. Okay, or you decided that you need to stop when you reach this mark. So what happens when you actually reach 3:18 and your answer is still not complete? Many students, they tend to continue writing because they want to save their answer, but not realizing that now they are overrunning their time, and the overrunning of time will eventually pile up, and then in the end you will not be able to complete the paper, and most likely you will miss the last requirement, which normally carries 10 to 15 marks. Okay, so let's say 3 or 4 minutes overrun on each question you are doing will in the end eventually pile up, and you would be behind by 20, 25, 30 minutes, and you will miss the last part. It's not really worth it. Trust me, do not overrun. So whenever you reach your mark, okay, whenever you reach your mark and your answer is not complete, have the guts to leave the answer, leave some lines, and move on to the next part. I repeat, whenever you reach your time and your answer is not complete, just leave the answer as it is. Okay, no need to spend extra 5-7 minutes, because the repercussion of spending those extra 5-7 minutes is much more serious, because you will not be able to complete the paper and miss 15 marks in the end, and you will realize that when you will reach the end, but that's too late. Please trust me, there were few students who followed this technique. None of their answers were complete, because they stopped writing as soon as they reached their time mark and they started the next question. Of course, they left few lines in case that in the end, if they are left with some time, they can come back and complete. And that's why they left some lines, 5 lines, 7 lines, and move on to the next part. So, none of their part was complete, because they followed and focused strictly on time management. They were able to complete the entire paper, which is very, very unlikely in SBL, and they all scored like 55, 56 marks, despite the fact that none of their answers were complete. But because they were able to attempt 100 marks, they were able to score 55. What if you're able to attempt only 80 marks or 85 marks? It is very unlikely or very difficult that you will be able to score 55 if you attempt 85. This is SBL, my friend. It is a low-scoring subject. It is a very subjective subject. So the more you attempt, the more chances of you passing, right? So please remember, these are the very, very important. I know you have never done these extreme measures in any of your ACCA papers, but this is not just any of your ACCA paper. This is SBL, which is extremely different from any other ACCA paper, right? So please follow this triangle, and more importantly, follow the time limits you set, and the moment the time is up, just stop writing. Nothing will go wrong. Just stop writing and move on. Leave some space. If you are left with some time in the end, you can always come back and complete it, right? But do not risk of completing these now and putting your last requirement at risk, right? So now let's look at some additional exam techniques which are very important. First of all, all your questions, they will first start with an introduction or the background of the company, and then the requirements will flow in. Very, very important that you read the introduction very carefully, line by line, word by word. Try to put yourself in the company's shoes. Try to imagine the whole picture of what the company is. So if you become imaginary part of that company, it will really make things easier for you when you start understanding the case and writing your answers. So reading the introduction is very, very important. Reading it carefully and take a deep dive into it and become part of that introduction. Very important. Okay? Second thing is you must carry a highlighter with you in the exam. I can assure you that highlighters are allowed in the examination centers. Don't worry about it. Okay, I have rechecked it several times. So when you are reading the case, anything which is important, you need to highlight. I don't like using, underlining technique, because when you start underlining, it becomes a bit messy and eventually everything is underlined. All right? So use highlighters and make sure that you highlight all the main information given in any exhibit. Because if you don't highlight, the more you read forward, you will tend to forget the previous information. So highlighting is very important for each exhibit. Okay? Okay, now the third point is you read one exhibit, you pause, you think about the whole exhibit, and you try and pick up whatever are the key messages or key information available in that exhibit and make a small list. Okay, so that you don't really have to read the entire exhibits again and again. If you make a small list of some important points mentioned in the exhibit, 4 points, 5 points, 6 points, that small list will be your power list, and you can use that list in your answers. So it's worth stopping for 1 minute or 2 minutes and try and summarize the key messages from that exhibit into a small bullet notes, just to be used for your answer planning purposes. Okay, normally only the bigger exhibits, we do this for bigger exhibits where there's a lot of information and that exhibit is to be used for more than one requirements. Then we make this list. There are few smaller exhibits which are 1-to-1. They are only to be used for one specific question. So you don't need to make this list for those smaller exhibits, of course, because time is also important. But for larger exhibits where there is a variety of information or the number of information is more and that exhibit is to be referred to for more than one questions, then it's good that you make a list. So normally there are few exhibits like board meeting minutes. So, these board meeting minutes, they contain a large amount of information. They contain a large variety of information, and these information you are expected to use in multiple requirements. So wherever you see a board meeting minutes, you should make a stop and make a summary of the key points which will help you in your answer. Also, there are annual reports. Okay, so these are normally the two exhibits which contains a large variety of information. So it's worth stopping and making a small summary of the key information or the key messages for these particular exhibits. Okay, what else? The format of the answer. Many students ask me these questions, sir, are we supposed to write bullet points? No, no, never, never. No bullet points format in SBL. Fine, the notes are in bullet format, our discussions are in bullet formats, but whenever you are drafting your answer in SBL, you will not use bullet format. Okay? So what should be the format? Many small paragraphs. Okay, so they, small paragraphs. What do you mean by small? Okay, so as per the examiner, he expects each paragraph to be just 3 lines. Okay, this is as per examiner's comment. So they don't like big paragraphs. They don't like paragraphs where more than 1 points are mentioned in one paragraph. They want just 1 point, 1 paragraph, another point, another paragraph, and so forth. And the size of the paragraph should not be more than 3 lines. So can I say, without confusing you, that this is effectively a bullet style, but we are not putting the bullet sign. So you see, imagine there are small 3-liner paragraphs, like 5 small paragraphs, 3 lines each, 1 blank line in between. So they are effectively a bullet style. The only thing is we are not actually putting a bullet sign. Okay, very important. Many small paragraphs of 3 lines each, and leave blank, that you are expected to leave 1 empty line or blank line between each para, so that visually the examiner or the paper checker can see that you have mentioned 5 distinct paragraphs, which means 5 distinct points. When you don't leave a line between paragraphs, sometimes visually it's difficult to see whether it's a separate paragraph or one paragraph. All right, so always get into this habit of expanding your answer so that it becomes visually easier for the examiner to see how many points or how many paragraphs, because they also follow this rule of thumb of 2 marks for each point or 2 marks for each para. So if you have given 5 distinct para which are visually separate and visibly 5 clear paragraphs, he knows that you have given you can score 10 marks. So very important from a presentation point of view that your answer is short but many small paras, leaving 1 line in between each para. Okay, and then next thing is if a financial information or financial statement is given, it is expected that you do a financial commentary. If it's asked in a particular requirement, then well and good. But if it's not specifically mentioned in any of the requirements, then also you are expected, being finance students, to analyze the financial statements or the numbers and give a very small commentary. Where you will place that commentary, it's up to you. You need to decide which requirement or which question is the most appropriate place to put your financial commentary. Okay? The next thing is look for stress words and make sure that you use those sentences in your answer. So what are stress words? Stress words are words like significantly, extremely, very, notably. So all these are words which are stress word. Significantly high risk, notably high quality, So these are putting stress on some information. So the examiner expects you to pick up all those information which carries these stress words, because the mere fact that there is a stress word shows that that information is important. Words like significant, you have to pick up those information and facts and copy paste and use in your answers. So always keep an eye open for stress words. Wherever you see a stress word, I normally use to circle the stress word large and clear so that I do not miss picking up that sentence when I am drafting my answer. Now, the next thing is models. Okay, a lot of students are very confused about models. So, in the previous course, P1 and P3, there was very high importance on models. Okay, but in SBL, clearly the examiner is not interested in models. They do not expect you to use models. They do not want you to name the models. They do not want you to name the author of the model. They do not want you to define the models. They just want you to give a logical answer. If you use a model, well and good. If you don't use a model, well and good. They are not very fussy about the use of models. Even if you use a model, you're not supposed to write the name or define the model. So they're very casual about models. However, my suggestion is there are few models which are very important, and the examiner himself in the specimen papers as well as the past papers of SBL has used some models. So let me give you a list of some basic models which you should try and use in your SBL paper. Fine, you don't give the name of the author. Fine, you don't define the models, but you can use use the model, for example, the SFA framework or the pastel models. These are very general models. So let me give you a list of few models which are very important for SBL, and you must use it in your exam. Pastel, Porter 5 forces, Porter diamond, SFA framework, Harmon process matrix, cultural web, and context of change. So I think these are the few handful models which you must memorize and try and use them. The most common is SFA framework, Pastel, and Porter. Okay, right. And the last thing is what to do if the answer is unknown. You think you will face this situation? Always, always. SBL is a very open-ended professional paper. Always there will be one requirement, or maybe two as well. I hope not. And always there will be one requirement which you don't know what it pertains to. You will say, what the hell? So be mentally prepared, okay? It's not your fault. It's just that it is such an open syllabus. Sometimes, the examiners, they deliberately put a complicated requirement just to test you how well you are able to handle an unknown situation, okay? So first thing is what to do when you don't know an answer, or sometimes the information provided is very less, but the marks is very high. So again, it's the same thing. You see, for example, in December attempt, there was a very big question on disruptive technologies. I believe it was 18 marks on disruptive technology. Now, if you recall disruptive technology, it's a pretty small topic. Okay, I can understand 7 marks, 8 marks, 10 marks, but my God, 18 marks? So a lot of students, they panicked because the information provided was not sufficient. Okay. And I'm sure, I can bet it was a deliberate move by the examiner just to see how you are able to handle and, come out of the situation. So what to do if you don't know the requirements, or if the information provided is very limited as compared to the marks? Okay. I can suggest, three things. If you don't know the answer, or if a very limited information is given, the first thing is you define. So SBL, there is no marks for definition or general answer. But what to do? If it's 18 marks, we need to fill up certain space, right? So if you don't know the answer, the first thing you can do is try and define that topic. So for example, this disruptive technology question, I would have, because it's 18 mark, I need to fill up at least 1 or 2 pages, right? So half a page I will use in defining what is disruptive technology. I would give some real life examples of disruptive technologies like Uber and Airbnb and Netflix. Okay, so half a page on general definition. And then reproduce the problem or the scenario mentioned in the case. Again, remember guys, these are firefighting techniques, right? These are do or die techniques. These should not be used in an ideal situation. It is only to be recommended or used when you don't really know the answer, but you need to fill the space. So reproduce the current problem or the scenario mentioned in the case. So whatever was the background of the disruptive technology which was given in the scenario, I would just try and fill another half page on, the background of why this disruptive technology is now getting important in that scenario. And then the third portion would be actually the actual answer. Okay, as I said, information was given in the scenario for disruptive technology, but it was limited information. It was not sufficient for 18 marks. So whatever information was provided relating to disruptive technology, I would give as my third component of the answer. So how to fill space, what to do when you don't know the answer or when the information is very limited. The only way to fill space is few lines on general definition, few lines on telling the background of the problem, and then coming to the last bit and coming to the main topic of the question. Okay, so this is just a bailout, a firefighting technique. You will have reservations, but if you have any better suggestion, do let me know. Otherwise, try and follow this. Okay, but when you do all this, what's the biggest risk? The biggest risk is you will overrun the time, because when you don't know something and you're trying to give a perfect answer, you start putting this and this and this and this, and suddenly before you realize you have overrun the time, and because it's 18 marks, you want to give it your best shot and you end up spending extra time. And this is exactly what happened in December 2018, that this disruptive technology was question number 3A, 18 marks, and there was question number 3B, I believe it was 15 marks, and that's it. That was the end of the paper. So students, they panicked so much in 3A, which is disruptive technology. They spent so much time in saving this question that in the end they realized that they had left no time for question number 3B, and most of them, they left question 3B worth 15 marks because they ran out of time. And I promise you, when they looked at question 3B, it was so easy that they regretted. They thought that, oh my God, we should have first do question number 3B because it was so easy. So you see, so this brings me to the last concept, which is sequence. So do you think the following the sequence of the requirement is important? Yes or no? So think about it, and we will conclude our exam technique session with one golden rule and the sequence thing. Okay, my dear students, we have discussed in a lot of detail the exam techniques, but if someone asks me to summarize everything and give one golden rule how to pass SBL in first attempt, based on my experience and one-to-one discussions with numerous students, my conclusion is one golden rule to pass SBL: first hour and last hour. That's the rule. Okay, I repeat, the golden rule to pass SBL is hidden in the first hour and the last hour. Okay, so when I say the first hour is what? Reading and planning time. Remember? So a lot of your answer depends on the first hour. How you read, how you plan, how you pick up points, and more importantly, that you do not cross this 60 minutes of reading time. In case you are unable to complete your reading within the first hour, you must stop. So the first hour is very, very crucial and critical from your answer preparation point of view as well from a time management point of view. And then the last hour, the fourth hour, okay, very, very important. Why is it important? So just understand that SBL is a 4-hour paper, unlike all the other papers which are 3 hours. So it requires extra physical stamina as well as mental stamina. By the time you finish your 3rd hour, you will be tired, you will be frustrated, you will be panicking. So your concentration power has already started to deteriorate. Okay? But why is it important? Because here you need to stop and assess your speed and progress and what's left. So you need to understand in the last hour, as soon as you complete the 3rd hour and you are starting the 4th hour, what you need to do? Analyze which requirements or questions are pending. You know that you just have 60 minutes, but you need to see what questions or requirements needs to be done in those 60 minutes. So what do you analyze? What do you look at? You look at the topic of what the requirements pertains to and the marks. So let's say in the earlier example of December 2018 paper, the last question was question number 3A, which was disruptive technology, 18 marks, and question number 3B, which was risk management, 15 marks, okay? 12 or 15, I'm not sure. Let's say 15. Right, so as soon as your 3 hours are up and you are entering your last hour, you need to stop writing. Wherever your answer is, you just stop and you need to assess which questions or which parts are left, and you will see the topics. So the first topic is disruptive technology, 18 marks, and the second topic is risk management, 15 marks. Now this is the time where you should decide which part you should aim for. You should always select that requirement which you are more confident, which you think you will be able to get extra marks. You should grab the low-hanging fruits. Okay, here is the time where I don't give a about the sequence of the questions. Yes, we have to follow the sequence of the questions, okay? Although there is no negative marking if you don't follow the sequence. However, the examiner is a bit sensitive and he wants or expects you to follow a sequence. All good, but up till the first 3 hours. In the last 1 hour, I don't give a about the sequence, okay? I will pick up that requirement where I think I will score the most because I have to pass. Remember, the last 1 hour is crucial because let's say in the first 3 hours you have done your answers and you are able to score like 40 marks, 45 marks. So you need another 5 or maybe 10 marks to cross the 50 benchmark in order to pass. And that last 5 or 10 marks will be squeezed out, will be scored from the last hour. So for me, the last hour is make or break. As serious as this, okay? No use if you get 45 marks from the first 3 hours. It is those last 5-10 marks which you require to reach 50 or cross 50 marks. And those last 5-10 marks is only possible from the last hour. So last hour is the make or break hour. Okay, so in the last hour, you decide which part you will go for first. Okay, so in December 2018, all the students, they were just adamant to follow the sequence and they spent extra time on disruptive technology. They were not able to get good marks in disruptive technology, and on top of that, they missed the risk management requirement, 15 marks altogether. And later on, in retrospect, they were all crying that what big mistake I did. I was so dumb. I should have gone for risk management. It was so simple. So this is all part of last hour planning. Okay, so had I been in that situation, I would have picked up risk management. I would have messed up with the sequence, no problem, because there is no negative marking if you don't follow the sequence. I would have done risk management first, and then in the end, whatever time was left, I would have happily devoted to part 3A, which was disruptive technology. And what will happen? In the end, if I run short of the time, which requirement did I miss? I missed the requirement, disruptive technology, which anyways I was not sure. There was very less information, so no regret. I missed doing something which I didn't knew. Right? This is common sense. Okay? So we will follow the sequence up till the first 3 hours. We will not disturb the sequence. But in the last hour, if the situation requires us to break the sequence, because there were some, generally, you know, the last requirement is the most easiest. That's what I have seen so far. Okay, in the specimen papers and in the past papers, the last requirement, 3B, 4B, whatever is the last requirement is generally easier, because the examiner knows that by the time you will reach that requirement, you will be drained, you will be frustrated, you will be tired, you will be short of time. So you will just, you know, miss out the last part. So they keep the easiest part towards the last. I want you guys to be cunning, you guys to be smart, because it is your future at stake. So in the last hour, please guys, take a stock of things and then select that question which you think is most easy to get marks on, okay? Do not get emotional or sentimental or adamant about I would just follow the sequence. Otherwise, maybe, I will see you guys again, unfortunately. All right, so summarizing, what's the golden rule for passing SBL? The first hour and the last hour, right? If you have any questions regarding these exam techniques, the professional marks, the formats, just reach out to me and I would be most happy to help you guys. If you have any suggestions or regarding the exam techniques, or you want to share your particular individual experience with me and you want some specific guidance regarding your own specific circumstances with regards to exam techniques, just reach out to me on my WhatsApp and I would be most delighted to discuss and help you with the exam techniques. But the main thing is the passing of the SBL is dependent on the exam techniques. It's highly dependent on those 4 hours when you are in that exam center. Okay, all the lectures, all the theories, all the models are secondary. It is that smart thinking and smart planning, thinking on your feet, as we say, which will make sure that you pass SBL. So exam techniques and street smartness is the key to pass SBL. Okay, I am fully accessible to hear your experience or any suggestion or any further clarification you require with regards to exam techniques. This is how it is close to my heart. All right. So now, after all these things, now I think we are ready to start our mock exams. We will start with the 3 SBL specimen papers published by ACCA, and we will do it in a lot of detail. I will do a lot of finger holding with you guys, and we will apply all these techniques on those 3 full SBL detailed questions so that you get a hands-on experience of how we apply, and then we will do the 2 actual exam questions, the September 2018 and the December 2018 papers, so that you can then test yourself whether you are able to manage the paper and your physical stamina and your mental stamina. Thank you very much.